Welcome, everyone. Today, we'll be exploring the topic of inheritance, specifically focusing on a group known as cognate heirs. On this introductory slide, you'll see the Copyright 2025 by Continuous Learning Development. We're going to discuss who these heirs are, close relatives who are not entitled to prescribed shares, nor are they from one's agnate relatives. In Arabic, they are called dawul aram. We'll also look at the conditions under which they inherit, especially when there are no other heirs entitled to prescribed shares except for the husband or wife, and only if there are no agnate relatives. Additionally, I'll mention that this group includes 6 males and 7 females. So, over the next few slides, we'll delve into the details of inheritance rules for these relatives. Let's get started. Let's explore the scholars' opinions on how inheritance shares are received. There are 2 main views that are quite popular. The first view suggests that inheritance shares are distributed similarly to how agnate relatives inherit. In other words, the closer a relative is to the deceased, the more they are entitled to inherit. Think of it as a hierarchy based on proximity. The second view is a bit different. It considers each heir in relation to the deceased and treats them as if they are in the same position as their parent or ancestor. For example, daughters' children are treated just like their mothers, their direct heirs. Now, it's important to note that the second view is the most popular among scholars. And for the purposes of our discussion, we will base our calculations and understanding on this second approach. This perspective helps us understand inheritance in a way that considers relational equivalence and fairness across different heirs. Let's take a closer look at these tables, which illustrate how cognate heirs are related to the deceased and how their shares are determined. In the first table, we see examples of relatives who are considered heirs in place of certain family members. For instance, a sister's son is recognized as a cognate heir in place of the sister herself. Similarly, the maternal brother's son is regarded in place of the maternal brother, and the mother's uncle is associated in place of the father. Moving to the second table, we observe a similar pattern. The maternal grandfather is linked in place of the mother, the daughter's son in place of the daughter, and the maternal uncle in place of the mother. The key point here is that these tables reflect the scholarly consensus on how cognate heirs inherit. They are recognized as representatives or substitutes for certain close relatives, which influences how their shares are calculated. Understanding this concept is essential because it helps us grasp how inheritance laws adapt to complex family relationships. It also reinforces the overall theme of our presentation, the importance of understanding family ties and legal principles in inheritance matters. By recognizing these, in place of relationships, we ensure that the inheritance process is fair and aligned with scholarly opinions. This approach clarifies how different relatives are considered when direct heirs are absent or when specific family structures are involved. Let's take a look at this slide, which focuses on some key concepts related to kinship and inheritance. Here, we see the term cognate heirs, which refers to relatives who can inherit through their blood relationship or marriage, depending on the context. In the first table, we see examples of in place of relationships. For instance, when we say excluded grandmother, it's replaced by the daughter in terms of inheritance rights, highlighting how certain relatives may be substituted or have different roles depending on the situation. Similarly, the paternal aunt is replaced by the father, and the maternal aunt by the mother. These substitutions are important because they show how kinship ties can influence inheritance and legal rights. Moving to the second table, it continues with cognate heirs, but clarifies specific relationships. For example, the daughter's daughter is simply referred to as daughter, emphasizing the generational link. The brother's daughter is the brother, and the sister's daughter is the sister. Also, the uncle's daughter is highlighted, showing the extended family relationships that can come into play. Connecting this to our overall theme of inheritance laws and family relationships, understanding these relationships helps us grasp who qualifies as heirs and how their relationships might influence inheritance rights. Recognizing these kinship terms and their roles ensures we interpret inheritance scenarios correctly and fairly. Let's talk about how the inheritance is distributed to the cognate heirs when the husband and wife are absent. First, if there is only one cognate heir, they automatically take the entire estate. It's a straightforward case, one heir, one share. But things get a bit more interesting when there are multiple heirs. If there are more than one, we need to consider whether they belong to the same category or different categories. Now, if they are of the same category, say, all brothers or all sisters, the distribution is based on a simple count of heads. Think of it as dividing the total number of heirs equally. On the other hand, if the heirs are from different categories, like a brother and a nephew, they don't share equally. Instead, their shares are determined based on the portion they represent from the estate, according to their relationship to the deceased. This method ensures that each heir's right is fairly proportional to their connection, which ties back to our overall theme of understanding inheritance rules. So, in essence, whether heirs share equally or proportionally depends on their categories, which is key to understanding inheritance distribution. Now, let's take a closer look at the family relationships depicted here. As you can see, we have the maternal aunt, which is represented as 1/3 in the table, and the paternal aunt, labeled as A in the table. These distinctions are important because they help us understand different family connections and how they might influence inheritance, social roles, or cultural expectations. Moving on to the next section, the chart shows the full brother's daughters. Each of these daughters is listed as 1, indicating their relationship to the central figure. It's interesting to note that all 3 instances refer to the same relationship, the daughters of the same brother, which emphasizes the importance of understanding sibling relationships in family structure. Throughout this slide, the key point is how family members are categorized and how their relationships are represented systematically. Recognizing these distinctions is crucial, especially when we're analyzing family trees, inheritance rights, or social dynamics within a family. Connecting this back to the overall theme, understanding these relationships helps us appreciate the complexity of family networks and their significance in cultural or legal contexts. So, keep in mind how these relationships are structured, as they form the foundation for many social interactions and decisions. All right, let's wrap up with some practical approaches. When there's only the husband or the wife present, the easiest way to analyze the case is to first allocate their share of the inheritance. This simplifies the process because you're isolating their portion and can see how it fits within the overall estate. Then, to get a complete picture, you consider a separate case for the other heirs who are related or similar, which helps you understand the broader implications. The key takeaway here is that breaking the problem into smaller, manageable parts makes the analysis clearer and more straightforward. This method not only streamlines the process, but also aligns with our overall goal of thorough, accurate inheritance division.